Look, good evening, everybody. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for turning up tonight. The few words that I had was with the director of IT, who's in the building right by me right now. Hopefully we'll have a decent meeting with no hitches, and we were just talking so that I can start going live. So yeah, thank you for turning up. You've all got your agendas, I hope, delivered to your homes. You've all got the virtual meeting guidance pack, which explains the etiquette for these meetings. I think this is about the third online meeting now, so you'll get used to it. You'll be used to it by now. Yeah, I don't want no punching below the belt, eye gouging, or any of that nonsense. So yeah, I know some of you will be disappointed. May I ask you to mute yourselves, please? Councillors, and if you don't mute yourselves, I do reserve the right to myself. Councillor Alan Mitchell, you're not muted. Councillor McGregor, you're not. Councillor Biddulph, you're not. So if you do me the favour that you do, thank you very much. Right, I think the live stream is on, but no doubt people will let me know if it ain't. So good evening, everybody. It's live. Thank you, Mark. That was the director of IT. Thank you, Mark. Good evening. My name's Councillor Tony Lukey, and I'm the Mayor of the London Borough of Hounslow, speaking live and direct from the Mayor's Parlour at Hounslow House, number 7 Bath Road. I'd like to welcome members of the council as well as council officers who will be assisting us throughout the meeting. In addition, I'd like to welcome members of the public who are watching this meeting at home and on live feed. This meeting is taking place using the recently a year old almost government regulations which allows councils to hold virtual meetings, and that's about to come to an end, and we'll be advising folk about that in due course. Over the next few weeks, and what the arrangements will be for local authority meetings here. The way this meeting will work is that I'll be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. It's easy to speak over each other, so let's try and do this in turn and through the chair, and by indicating through the chat function, by putting the letter D in the chat function if you wish to speak, and that way we can I can follow it. But don't use the chat function for any funnies, any quips, any digs, or any of that stuff. You know, it just blizzards everything. So everybody who does put the letter D in there will get the chance to speak. You're muted at the moment, and please keep your mutes on until invited to speak. And those who cannot use the chat function because they're joining this meeting by telephone, and I know there's only one, and that's my good friend Councillor Mel Collins, who has the challenges at the moment because of his visual impairment. So he uses the telephone, and the only interruptions I will accept will be from Councillor Mel Collins. Members of the public are reminded that the agenda and all reports being considered by the council tonight can be found on the council website under the Borough Council meeting page. And there's also, for members of the public and for councillors alike, there is a supplementary agenda, some new bits, which includes responses to petitions, and also amendments to motions that were previously submitted. So I will ask you, and I will be referring to these pages throughout the meeting as and when the need arises. So I hope this meeting will go well, but as always with virtual meetings, I'd like you to bear with us. I think we've cracked it from the last time, but if not, please bear with us. Right, so let's move to the first item of the agenda. Do we do we have any apologies? I've got apologies for people leaving early. That's Councillor Barr and Councillor Smith, and a late arrival, Councillor Gurung. Any other apologies?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is Adriana George. Can I leave 15 minutes early, please? All
right. Well, whenever 15 minutes early is, but you, by all means, yeah, let us know when you're going. Thank you very much. Put that in the chat box and say see ya. Okay, thank you. All right. I think the meeting is quora. We've got more than 15 people mug enough to turn up today. Are there any declarations of interest for any of the items here?
Councillor Luki, could I just add that?
Who is that? Who is that? Put a D in the chat box if you want to speak. Remember that, or is that, what's the point in saying it?
No, just to say that Councillor Barr may be late today.
All right. I think I said that myself, but doesn't matter. Oh, he might be late as well as leaving early. Okay, thank you. Is that Councillor Dennis?
He's here, Mr. Mayor. He's here.
Oh, yeah. There you go. All right. Okay. All right. Right. Thank you. So, any declarations of interest from anybody? Yeah, Councillor McGregor, you wish to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to disassociate myself from some of the remarks you've made in your opening to this Borough Council. I think they are a pain on the public and disreputable from yourself. It's not the sort of thing we expect from the Mayor.
Okay, noted. Right. Agenda item 2, any announcements? Any announcements? Cabinet? Councillor Lambert, I heard you wanted to announce something.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I was trying to find me D. Yes, I'd like to announce the commencement of the Borough's Special Waste Service. We've employed a small team of specialist enforcement officers to focus specifically on fly tipping, initially targeting our worst hotspots. They will work in concert with our existing enforcement team, our waste and recycling officers, who can assist people to find legal solutions to their waste disposal, our extensive network of CCTV cameras, and of course local residents and businesses. Fly tipping is a scourge in Hounslow and across the nation. This new team will help to fight against it. Secondly, I'd like to announce that we've launched our Environmental Champions scheme. This scheme is designed to encourage and support members of the public in helping keep our borough clean and beautify it, plus encourage wildlife and biodiversity. Any resident can join the scheme and choose their own level and style of involvement, and we already have many people signed up to the scheme from all across the borough. More very welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Tom Bruce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Mr. North, who was a long-time caretaker at Ivy Bridge School, who's sadly passed away very recently. He was born in Isleworth and worked in the borough all his life, and most significantly, I'm told here, for around working at Ivy Bridge School as a caretaker for around 25 years, which is a significantly long time for anybody in one job. He was also heavily involved in youth sports and youth clubs, particularly around the Ivy Bridge estate. Part of the football games, I'm told, the end of the football entertainment, he would become DJ and take on a different mantle and entertain the young people there in a different way. So a real community champion and a community leader. He also stood for the council a couple of times in 1974 and 78, sadly not winning either time. But I think it's fair to say that it's for us to pay tribute to him and to thank him and his family for all the efforts that he's put into the community over the past 90 of his years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's a long time, man. Thank you, Tom. Councillor Hanif Khan.
Thank you very much, Mayor. My announcement is extremely short, only to let our residents know that as the lockdown starts easing, the adult and cycle training will be resuming, and I know that was extremely popular, so I thought it was a great opportunity to let our residents know. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Samia Chowdhury.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of them quick ones. I have 5,000 trees being planted this year for every child born in the borough. And then Brentford Library refurbishment is coming to a close, and we will be opening the library at the end of the April. And also we'll be opening all our leisure centres 12th of April under Lambton Leisure. Feltham Pond Phase 1 work has been completed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. I'd like to say, I'd like to say a few words about the late Councillor Derek Wheatley, who died in November. He was 84 years old, and I had the honour and pleasure of meeting former Councillor Derek Wheatley, who lived in Hounslow South Ward. He was a councillor for Isleworth North Ward, 1964 to 1968, and that is dear to me because I was councillor for Isleworth North Ward, elected in 1990 and 1994. And I met Derek for the first time at the 50th anniversary celebrations of the London Borough of Hounslow at the Civic Centre in 2015. When Councillor Smart was mayor, and he was I got the shout about him from former Councillor Mike Rickwood, who was also a councillor in Isleworth North Ward and still lives there in Isleworth, and also a fellow called Mike Watts, who was a councillor in Cranford Ward 1964 for a term. And I can't really say much about him personally, but I did inquire of former councillors, people that I know that knew Derek, and when I did meet Derek, it was a pleasure. And he was at the as I said, he was at the anniversary, and he was at the mayor making in 2019. I've got a lovely photograph of him and a few old stalwarts, including Councillor Foote, on the balcony. So my words from former Councillor Derek John Grigg, and who was also leader of the council and also councillor in Isleworth North Ward in the 80s. Derek and I were at Isleworth Grammar School at the same time, where he had a rebellious reputation, and sometimes, but not always, being falsely accused of breaking school rules. Know the feeling. Several years later, to the dismay of some of the schoolmasters, he was appointed a governor of the school. We did our national service in the RAF at the same time, although our paths never crossed during the 2 years there. In recent years, we explored older parts of London and occasionally watched cricket at Lord's. Derek was a cheery friend, and I will miss the many stories he told, some of them quite long. I know the feeling. From Mike Rickwood, I owe Derek a lot for the early support he gave me. Mike Rickwood was 21 years old, the youngest he could be a councillor in the 60s, or stand for office in the 60s, and he was a councillor in Isleworth North Ward in 1964 to 68. I owe Derek a lot for the early support he gave me. He was fiercely intolerant of what he perceived to be injustices. He held strong opinions while still being open to persuasion. He instinctively saw the best in people. His death is immensely sad, and he will be greatly missed by everyone who knew him. Dave Wetzel. Derek was a wonderful guy to know, a true socialist who always offered friendship and good advice. Derek used to work for Frank Jansen, the first leader of Hounslow Council, and I used to assume that Derek shared Frank's right-wing politics, but this proved not to be the case, and it was only in the last few years at our Christmas lunches that I learned that Derek didn't even actually like Frank Jansen. Mike Watts, councillor for Cranford Ward. In 1964, Derek and I were elected to Hounslow Council. I was 21 years old and a bit of a tearaway. Derek proved to be a wise counsel and calming influence. On leaving the council in 1968, I moved away and lost touch. On moving back to Isleworth a few years ago, I was delighted to meet up with him again and enjoyed his companionship. He remained a committed socialist and had lost none of his ideals right to the end. My friend and former councillor Ron Bartholomew, I met Derek through Hounslow Labour Club. That was the one on Heath Road, those of you young enough to remember, in which we were both heavily involved in as volunteer barmen. Yeah, right. This led on to many years of him serving in the workers' bar at the Reading Rock Festival. Derek was always cheerful and welcoming at the bar, where laughter and joking would continue late into the night. Some other festival staff were also veteran Hounslow Labour councillors, and we enjoyed sharing stories with others. Many who made friends with Derek will miss him, and we're looking forward to raising a glass or more to his memory when we are again allowed to meet together. Look, I'm not going to ask for a minute's silence. I think that those words that I were given to me and I've read out are enough, and to remember Derek by, and I'll find another way of celebrating Derek. Look, thank you very much to everybody for your announcements. We'll now come to the minutes of the last council meeting held on the 2nd of March 2021, and that was our budget meeting. A few people have been in touch with me about this. Can I just ask members about accuracy? I take it everyone's happy with that, is it? Okay.
I'm not happy.
All right. Okay. Hang on. All right. I've got you down. I've seen your D, Councillor McGregor. So I will call you to speak. How about right now, Councillor McGregor?
Wish me to yeah.
Can't hear you.
Yes. Okay. Here we go. With regard to the minutes, we need to look very carefully at matters arising and as content as well, because if we turn to page 10.
Page 10.
Yeah, page 10 of the agenda, you'll see that Councillor Steve Cowan, leader of the council, reported to members, and it's got on, it should be of the outcome.
Okay.
On the outcome of the recent ballot of all residents. So there's an of missing.
Okay.
Okay. In that case, move on to page 11. If you look at the top paragraph, third line down of the main text, the mayor, however, advised, but the matter was not one related to the agenda before members. Okay. But the advice was not, but the matter was not one related to the agenda. It was that the matter was related to the agenda.
Councillor McGregor, have you got a slew of these corrections? These grammatical corrections?
Well, I've got a range of things, Mr. Mayor. Of course, I always have. But the important thing about this is that I want some retractions because people have told untruths in the meeting. Okay.
Well, will you? Okay. It's not helpful to get them at this stage. If you can list them, if it's about the grammatical, if it's about grammar and how it's written. Hang on, wait, please. If it's about grammar and how it's written, please submit that. Yeah, please drop us a line in writing. If there's any matters arising, if there's any moral accuracy, we'll pick that up. But if it's matters arising, we'll pick them up in a minute. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll wait to be called. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McGregor. Right, okay. Right, I've got a point of order raised by Councillor Rajawat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a very small point of order. I noted earlier when a couple of colleagues, in particular from the opposition group, had their cameras on. They had their backgrounds up. It's my understanding that we're in the pre-election period, and ordinarily, whilst I don't like their backgrounds, I can't stop them from putting them up. But in a pre-election period, can I just get some guidance from you as the chair or through the monitoring officer as to backgrounds which state party political allegiance and wards in a pre-election period specifically?
Okay. Okay. Thank you on that. Miss Farmer, legal officer, are you listening in? Have you got a comment on that?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
I can.
Yes,
And
I am.
see you. Yeah.
So I would agree with Councillor Rajwat if they have more of a national symbol on them. Conservative. I can see one that's got what I believe is a conservative. If they've got a kind of electioneering national symbol on them, then I would agree. But just saying that you're a councillor for a certain ward is absolutely fine.
Surely.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, sorry. If you want to speak, put a D in. Don't tell me. Don't pipe up without me calling you. Is that Councillor Biddulph?
No.
Right. Okay. So,
it was Councillor Giles.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I can see that now because there's a D in the box. Yeah. Councillor Giles.
Surely they're just identifiers.
Let's just take the advice from our legal officer, if that's okay, and it's only for a couple of hours. If we can bear that in mind, I appreciate we all want the election. Yeah, we all waiting for the election, but let's just bear that in mind and take the advice. Is that okay, please?
So, Mr. Mayor, did you want me to respond?
Well, if we need to respond, yeah, thank you.
So if it's a symbol that would appear on the ballot paper,
right,
then we wouldn't want it appearing in the pre-election period.
Okay.
Thank you for clarification.
Okay, thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Gabriella Giles. Thank you. And then. Yes, okay, I think we've got that confirmed. No, none of that, no party logos. Right. So let's right, matters arising there. Councillor Biddulph.
So this isn't a matter of, thank you, Mayor. It isn't a matters arising, it is a correction to the minutes on page 11.
What, when you say a correction to the minutes, what?
So right at the top.
Yeah.
The minutes do not record what actually happened. And so I would like to propose a change. I think it should record that councillors had attempted to raise an issue of the legality of the meeting by posting messages in the chat, which resulted in the message from the chief executive, which resulted in me being muted. That is not in the public record. Otherwise, it's not an accurate record of what happened. The muting occurred during the broadcast. It can be heard on the broadcast with the mayor saying, with you saying you were going to mute me. It must therefore be noted in the minutes, and I've got a suggestion for how the minutes could be.
Okay.
Okay,
well, thank you. Look, minutes are not a verbatim record of a meeting, okay? And if we wanted to be literal, about the minutes, I would have thought that your amendment would be half a page long if we wanted to reflect everything that was said. If we want to reflect everything said, sorry, hang on. Monitoring officer, can you advise on this as well, please?
Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
I can, Ms. Farmer.
Thank you. So the minutes are not a verbatim record of exactly which words were said. That they're a record of they're not a word for word account. So if there's a disagreement about the minutes, then it has to be put to the vote.
So can I just say, Mr. Mayor, mine is not a verbatim, and I don't like that inference. It is not a verbatim report.
Okay.
It is a summary minutes.
Okay.
I've been taking minutes for 40 years. I know what minutes are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, I'm probably older than you, and I do too. Look, I'm not going to take that. If you want, you know, if it means putting it to the vote, then so be it. But you know, if you want to propose and second it, yeah, I don't think it's appropriate here. It's how it was. If you want to do that, by all means, and I'm happy to take a very, you know, a speedy vote on this.
Mr. Mayor, you don't know what I'm suggesting should go into the minutes, so I don't see.
I do. I've got it in front of me. Yes.
Others haven't seen it.
Well,
it's not even twice as long as these minutes. It's only 2 more lines longer than what is in the draft, but it does not record the fact that this significant action happened, and therefore these minutes do not reflect what happened, and indeed they don't match the broadcast, in which you can hear you saying, for example, that you're going to mute me, and then you mute me, and that is not recorded in the minutes. And I think that's a real dereliction of duty and abdication of democracy, or whatever the
I think it's on. I think it's on. Look, I think this is on the record anyway. Look, say what you want to say, and I'll put it to the vote if the minutes should be changed. Okay, say what you want to say now.
Thank you. Upon resumption of the meeting, Councillor Joanna Biddulph advised the Mayor that she wished to raise the fact that the Chief Executive had posted an inappropriate message using inappropriate language in the meeting chat. This was after Councillor Biddulph and other councillors had reported the details of the broadcast failure out of a concern that the meeting might not be legal. The Mayor admitted he saw the message but refused to discuss it in the meeting. When Councillor Biddulph said the issue should not be brushed aside, the Mayor muted Councillor Biddulph. The broadcast continued, but with intermittent failures.
Okay. All right. So how do we do this? I'm going to put this to the vote, and we'll those in favour. How are we going to count this? Monitoring officer, chief executive, monitoring officer. How are we going to count this?
Mr. Mayor, in the way that we've been voting in council is by going to the leaders and asking how their group votes, and then asking if there's anyone that's not voting along those lines, in the way that we've been voting since we've been virtual.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Biddulph's proposal?
Yes, I second it, Mr. Mayor.
And who's that? Councillor Gill?
Gill, yeah.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Gill. Okay. Look, I don't want to go into. I'm not. We do not debate minutes. This is just to change the minutes. Councillor Curran, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm here.
Okay. How say your group?
We will not be supporting any amendments to the minutes.
Okay. Councillor McGregor, how say your group? Councillor McGregor?
Perhaps the deputy leader, if he's not there.
Well, hang on. Are you chairing this meeting now? Is there a deputy leader of that minority group?
Of that minority group?
There is. Hello, I'm back here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McGregor, good. Welcome back.
I was so engrossed with your wonderful commentary. The answer is our group has major concerns. If the leader of the council is saying he's not going to do anything to the minutes, and he's not going to offer retractions for untruths, okay, so be it. In that case,
it's a motion. Look, sorry, it's a motion. How do you vote? Do you vote for this proposal or against?
I'm explaining how we're voting.
Just say yes or no, my friend.
No, I'm not going to say yes or no, given the fact that Councillor Curran said he was not prepared to allow any retractions and any changes. This is completely undemocratic. Okay. It is a complete default position. It is not good enough for London Borough to have this sort of debate. Either the minutes are true or they're not.
Okay. Right, okay. So, how are you going to vote, your group?
We will vote in favour of the sentiments which have just been exhibited by Councillor Biddulph.
Right, thank you. And anybody from either group going to dissent from these these votes in any other way? Okay, so that motion is that proposal, that motion to change the minutes is lost. Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Sam Hearn. Councillor Hearn.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it was a matter arising from the petitions last time. The person who raised the petition, Mr. Epstein, the request to reverse all changes made to the streets in Chiswick since April 2020 The petitioner was really quite upset with the response that he got, given that there were 4,319 signatures which were organised in 3 days. And we all knew there was going to be there is a consultation process. This was outside of that. I don't want to labour the point. You've been very kind letting me bring this item forward, but with that many people supporting a petition, he really felt, and I would agree with him, that the matter should have been debated.
Okay, thank you. You know, we don't debate petitions, but thank you for that, and that will be minuted. If there is a letter to be written, perhaps a lead member could write it, or the head of Democratic Services could drop Mr. Epstein a line to explain the process. All right. Councillor Shantanu Rajawat, did you have something?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's a matter arising from the minutes. Hopefully I've got the right page reference. It's page 22 on the version that I'm looking at. It's comments made by Councillor Mashisho as part of the budget discussion, and he mentions in his minutes that the administration acts as if austerity has only come to Hounslow. Just to point out for the record, and I know Councillor Mashisho will be very diligent in his workings, he mentioned 3 councils in particular during the course of that debate: the London Borough of Wandsworth, Hillingdon and Kensington and Chelsea, and stated that they were proposing a freeze. Hard to believe considering their budget papers were out at that point. But just to confirm for the benefit of the meeting, that the London Borough of Wandsworth increased their council tax by 3%, the London Borough of Hillingdon by 4.8%, and the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea by 4.99%. And for the benefit of the minutes, in completeness, I'm very happy to provide a table of all the increases across London, as Councillor Curran did point out during his comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rajawat. Councillor John Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I draw attention to the bottom of page 38, please? I have given Councillor Dunn early notice. At that meeting, we were discussing the crime and disorder and the community safety strategy, and Councillor Dunn undertook to give me a copy of a report called the Leapwise Report and address my concerns about recruitment issues with the community police team. Regrettably, she's not done so to date. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, may I, as soon as you raise it, I'm sure it'll be, I would hope that it's rectified afterwards. Perhaps the minute taker can drop whoever can a line, and we'll.
I've done that already, Mr. Chair.
All right, but there may be a reminder from this meeting formally, if that's okay, Councillor Todd.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Right. Who else have I got here? I've got Councillor Mashisho on the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, on the minutes, just to clarify the point, I think Councillor Rajawat is I'm not sure where he's getting his reports from, but what I was saying in that meeting was that council tax around London.
Councillor Mashisho, sorry, Councillor Mashisho. We're not entering debate. We're just saying it's corrections. Any corrections, matters arising.
Yes, I'm correcting his assertion, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Noted. Right. And you still got your little flag up there against the advice of the monitoring officer.
I've got another point. Sir, are you going to interrupt me while I'm talking, or are you going to let me talk?
Carry on talking then.
Thank you. So I've got 2 points. One is about to do with the flag, and the one's to do with Councillor Rajawat. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first one with Councillor, just to clarify that perhaps the minutes were taken down wrong, but my point was that other parts of London boroughs were justifying their increases, whereas we were giving ourselves an increase of £411,000 at the expense of the taxpayer. That's what my point was. And the Labour mayor has a 9.5% preset increase, and we've already offered at GLA that we can save our residents £100,000. So that's a clarification if he wants one. the Conservatives are saving money for residents.
Okay, all right. You're chancing it with the politicking.
On the point, thank you, referee. On the point of my flag, by the way, that if someone can point me out, I'll happily oblige. But that flag behind me is the British flag. I'm proud to be British. It is not the Conservative logo when you go to the ballot box. That's a tree. This is a flag. And I'm proud of my flag.
Look, sorry. Okay, look, Councillor Mashiso, you heard the advice of the monitoring officer. It's if you're not taking it, you're probably bringing it into
at the ballot box. Okay? At the ballot box is a tree, but this is not a tree. This is a flag.
All right. Maybe I'm the tree. Okay, thank you. Who else we got? Councillor Curran. Yeah, you're still alive, Councillor Curran?
Yes, I am. I'm just bewildered. We've had a very clear guidance from the monitoring officer. That is clearly a Tory logo with the word Conservative underneath it. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And I would ask you to ask Councillor Mashiso to remove it and put a different background on.
I think Councillor Mashiso is he's shaking his head. It's up to the monitoring officer to give the advice on this. It's difficult for me with Councillor Mashiso sometimes. Jessica Farmer.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. So my view is I can't really. It looks like a flag on a tree to me, but if we're in a pre-election period and the council resources should not be used to promote any particular political parties. And it seems to me that having a logo like that does look as if it's supporting a particular political party.
So okay, thank you.
So I think it should be changed.
Okay, thank you.
Under what rule? I'd like to know, because you said at the beginning that it shouldn't be at the ballot box. At the ballot box, when you go to sign, it's a tree next to it, a green tree. This is a flag of Great Britain.
Okay, look, Councillor Mashiso, I think you're chancing it here. You're being. Hang on, sorry, mate. Sorry, no. Listen. I'm the mayor. I'm asking you to listen to me. You're getting this advice. Sorry, you're getting the advice, and so we've got Councillor McGregor's doing the same now. You got the advice of the monitoring officer. Were you at the standards? Were you at the standards? Training the other night, I wonder, but
yes, I was.
Yeah, okay then. All right. Look, if you're not only bringing yourself into disrepute, you're bringing the authority and your party into disrepute. And I see the leader of the minority party's got the same. It's look. I can't do anything, can I? I can mute you maybe, but I'm not going to do that. Let's just get on with it. I've got Mr. Bolger, the Chief Executive, wanted to get in there now.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, Councillor Lukey. The advice of the monitoring officer in respect of the pre-election period is absolutely final, and I'm speaking both as the head of paid service and the constituency returning officer. The use of the council's resources, such as IT resources, to promote a political party during the pre-election period is completely unacceptable and disallowable. And I would request Councillor McGregor and Councillor Mashiso to remove the logo, which is in the background, because that's clearly a symbol of the Conservative Party, and beneath it, it says Conservatives.
Thank you, Mr. Bolger. I reluctantly agree.
About time. Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Referee Lukey.
No, I'm the mayor, my friend. All right, I'm the mayor. I'm not mayor for much longer, and some people may be happy with that. But you've been a councillor for 3 years now. It's about time you worked it out. Thank you. Right, Councillor Curran, have you finished?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, good. Who else we got here? Councillor. Who else we got? Councillor Dunn. Anything else on? Remember, we're still doing minutes. Matters arising.
I just wanted to respond to Councillor Todd to say, yes, thank you for the reminder. He did send me an email after the start of this meeting to remind me that he had not received the report.
Okay.
We're going to publish it. That's the undertaking we took, so it will be available to all councillors and indeed the public.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Right. Who else we got? Who else? Councillor Salman Shaheen.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say exactly what Niall did. So he's already made my point that it said the word Conservatives. The point has been raised and settled. And Councillor Machito, all I can say is barking up the wrong tree.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Right. Is that it? Can we move on now from this item?
I put D in 3 times.
All right, okay. Sorry, I'm getting lost here. I see what some people are doing. Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If Councillor Rajawat is going to make corrections, they must be accurate. And if he's going to be quoting Conservative boroughs in a negative way, he must also state whether those boroughs have increased the numbers of their SRAs this year, and not just whether they're increasing council tax. Because what we have in our borough is an increase in council tax and an increase in rewards for councillors.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're not, as I say, we're not debating it again, are we? So let's just wait for his list to come round. And in fact, what we were looking at there, that was a separate item. That item that we were discussing just now was about council tax levels and levy. It wasn't about the council constitution. So
that was my point.
No, well, sorry, no.
It was.
Yeah, exactly. All right then. Right. Who else wants to speak? Councillor McGregor, did you have something else to say?
Mr. Mayor, I would like very much to draw your attention to a matter arising on page 21. Page
21. Yeah, whereabouts on page 21?
And Councillor Candice Adderton, this is the second main paragraph with the intent.
Second bullet point.
Yeah, the point I'm raising is that the Conservatives' proposal not to raise council tax meant that they were unable to meet the increasing cost of adult social care. It's quite clear she did not understand the alternative budget. In fact, we were going to increase adult social care, as I made quite clear in my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Right, Councillor, how about that for a segue? Councillor Atherton.
Sorry, Councillor Luca, did you just say my name?
Well, your name's. Oh no, sorry. Okay, sorry, you didn't have a D. You were. People are using the chat box for not saying they want to speak. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. Right. So, can we approve the minutes subject to those amendments and all those comments? Yes. No. Or you're all gone home.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Right. Agenda item 4. We move on to petitions. I usually start by asking if any member has any petitions they wish to present to me. Has anybody been given any petitions since the last meeting? No. Okay. Right. So we move to the second part of the process. Oh, sorry. Yes. Someone's got a yes. Is that Councillor Rajawat? You got a petition, have you, mate?
No, I beg your pardon. I was responding to Councillor Mashisho in the chat. I do beg your pardon.
Let's not chat in the chat, please. You know, really, it's not there for that. No, why does anyone want to talk to each other, really? Let's get on with the meeting. Right, so can I draw members' attention to the briefing note on the supplementary agenda which relates to the Gunnersbury Park Bowls Club petition? I'd ask members to note this, and if anyone has any comments on this subject, to raise them with Councillor Samia Chowdhury or officers outside the meeting. We also have a petition today relating to the Park Road allotments as part of this item. I'd like to Mr. Ian Speed has declined the opportunity to speak, but both responses for each to each petition and supplementary comments from the petitioners are in the supplementary documents. So thank you very much. Can we agree that item, agenda item 4?
Agreed, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, all right. Well, one of you agrees. That's okay. Thank you very much. Right, now, agenda item 5, page 55 to 67, which is pay policy statement. Councillor Atherton.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Atherton, lead member for Adult Social Care and Health. I'm reporting today and seeking agreement for our pay policy statement, which has to be published by tomorrow. So it would be great if we can agree it this evening. So our pay policy statement links to our pledge, which is to have sound financial management, and it also sets out our ambition to provide good quality local jobs and a strategy to attract and retain the best people. So the pay policy statement is a requirement following the Hutton Review, which was a review that took place in 2011. It covers a remuneration of our chief officers as well as our lowest paid members of staff, and it talks about the relationship between those roles, and that is called the pay multiple. So it sets out what the difference is between our highest paid staff and our lowest paid staff, and it also sets out the difference between our average paid staff and our highest paid staff. And on our pay multiples, we are in line with our near neighbours, including Richmond Borough, Ealing, etc. So we sit about right when it comes to pay multiples, but it's something that we constantly review. In this report, it also talks about the gender pay gap, which I'm really pleased to report. We've had a reduction in our median gender pay gap. So now the gap between what men and women earn at the council, if you look at the median, is 0. So that's really, really positive. If you look at the mean, we've reduced by 2 points. Let me just check, that is in the report. But we have also, but we've still got a little way to go. So the mean gap is about 4%. So we've been working really hard on this, and we've had a lot of action plans in place to offer support to female men. Well, we've actually offered support to all members of staff, but we've particularly targeted and asked for people to take part in various programs in order to see if we can reduce this. It has been more difficult with the pandemic, but we've put in lots in place going forward next year to reduce this. And we're also really mindful that we can talk about our gender pay gap, but it's important to look at our other equality groups. So we're also going to be looking into gaps when we look at different ethnic minority groups that work at the council, and we're also going to be looking at gaps for our employees that have disabilities and versus our employees that don't have disabilities, to just make sure that there's not any other sort of hidden gaps that we're not kind of recognising and considering. Usually when you look at gender pay gap and you overlay other characteristics, then the gap does tend to widen, especially around ethnic minority groups and around disability. So we're working really hard on that. Also, some other key points to note in the pay policy statement is that our chief officer pay progression is under review, and we'll be using the performance management framework to identify people in our talent spotlight who we wish to reward, and we're looking at the mechanism of how we do this, but it will be approved by our chief executive, who is the head of paid services, as you've already mentioned this evening. And also, as part of our the constitution officers, and it won't extend to the approval of remuneration packages. And then finally, another thing to notice is the restriction of public sector exit payment. Sorry, I'll say that again. The restriction of public sector exit payment regulations 2020. And just to flag that the government has backtracked on this, so the regulations are being withdrawn and the cap will no longer apply in the public sector. So our stance on severance payments is about it's remained the same as the previous year, and is covered also in the report. So yeah, mainly it's all about transparency and letting people know how we pay our staff, and also a recognition that we're working really hard on this so that we can attract the best people, but also that we can keep hold of the best people, and we're trying to do our best to make sure that there's equality across the board when it comes to our pay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor Atherton. That's seconded, is it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll second it. Reserve my right to speak.
Okay, okay, thank you, Councillor Curran. Right, I've got shown that they wish to speak Councillor McGregor and then Councillor Giles.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask you to ask Councillor Giles to go after me, because obviously there'll be other people taking part, and we just need to make sure we have a good mix. We have concerns about this report. We appreciate that it's a statutory requirement, and we appreciate that the issues here need to be developed and looked at. We consider that the question of severance pay needs to be looked at in great detail for senior officers. We've had far too many circumstances recently where the limitation of severance pay has not been applied properly, and we just need to look at that very carefully. We are not satisfied that the severance policy is appropriate to the circumstance we're now in. Obviously, we don't want to be tough on people, but sometimes these severance policies were actually laid down some years ago, and we need to bring them up to date in terms of the current position. People talk about COVID-19 and the financial position that places the council in. We don't need to make it worse by offering very high severance pay benefits if we don't have to. So when we actually put those into contracts, we are in danger of heightening the cost to the council if we need to remove somebody. We had recently, not too distant past, a case where a space senior officer was let go, and people were shocked by the amount that was paid in compensation. Well, bear in mind the compensation is contractual, so we must make sure that we get contractual observations that give us a chance to work very carefully against the severance policy. The other issues that we're concerned about are, of course, the gender pay gap. This was first put in place under the equal pay legislation back some decades ago. And the important thing is this, that we recognise that the gender pay gap, the gap between male and female in particular, is one where we have a very large number of the workforce who are doing what you might call clerical and administrative jobs and not taking part in decision making, and that does in fact skew things. But nonetheless, the Conservative Party is committed in Hounslow and elsewhere to ensuring that this pay gap is not maintained, and that people get the right rate of pay for the job they're doing, irrespective of gender or gender attribution. We are not certain that this goes as far as it should. Councillor Atherton has made a good case, but we do have severe doubts about the quality of this pay statement. And we have, as we have in previous years, when we've actually looked at this, we've actually said we could do more, and we will do more when we return to power. Many thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Giles.
Councillor Hearn had put a D in before me. I don't know whether you wanted him to speak, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
You go. Let's not.
No, I just bring that to your attention at the moment. So,
you're on mute, Gabriella.
Councillor Giles, we can't hear you. And it wasn't me who did it.
No, it wasn't me either.
All right.
So let me start again. So while I recommend or while I observe that there's a lot to be recommended within this report, it does feel like it's not quite complete. I'm really glad that Councillor Atherton mentioned the diversity pay gap, because that was actually one of the points that I was going to raise, because it's not actually in this report. So I'm glad that is something that the council will be looking at moving forward, because as she says, it's not just gender that is a divider when it comes to people's earning potential, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. I think what we need to do is take a look at the chief officer salary scale. The link that is included within the report actually refers to a document that again is due to expire tomorrow, and I don't think we've seen the pay scale for the next year, or indeed if this pay scale is going to remain the same, why has that document not been updated and submitted alongside this? We have heard talk of the chief officer pay performance, and like, does somebody want to say something?
No, I decide who says what. You carry on.
Yeah. So there was the chief officer pay performance has been detailed in here, but actually there's no reference to how this will be assessed. Obviously, the head of paid service is also part of this, but there's no actual insight as to how that will be graded or how people are then seen as deserving of improvements. You've said that you've introduced a performance management framework. So when will that new process be forthcoming? And I think it's also quite important to note that we have 383 employees that earn more than 50,000 K who are defined as chief officers, and they get a pension fund contribution from the council of 21.54%. However, I'm surprised that we don't actually see that that's matched with, that's not referenced in point 3.3, or well, 3.4 is not necessarily relevant, but 3.3, because I would like to know what the council contributions are to those on the London living wage, and then and also how many of employees are on that London living wage. Councillor Atherton talked about the mean gender pay gap, and it's decreased by 0.03% in the last year, from 4.1% to 4.07%. And a lot of that is to do with, as she says, you know, and as Councillor McGregor has said, women being not in senior positions where they are eligible for those pay rises or those increased salaries. And so I think it would be nice to get that transparency around how many people are employed in the council with the London living wage. You've mentioned transparency again, so I'd also ask to know how many apprentices are we employing within the borough. I think it's a great scheme, and it's a great way to get young people into work, and I thoroughly support it. But I think we need to know how many people are benefiting from it. The other point that I would like to say is under 4.6, there's a mention of allowances, and I feel like this is a real concern for me, in the fact that it states
you have 30 seconds, yeah. Councillor Giles.
In that we're saying that because of the pandemic there is a possibility for pay increases. I don't think that's appropriate, given that so many people, especially when we talk about Heathrow, have lost their jobs or been or not actually eligible for any sort of pay rise, and I think that would be a real crucial point that we need to observe over the next year. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you.
Here.
Councillor Hearn.
Wasn't aware I'd put a D in.
Well, so do you want to speak or not?
No, I'm happy with what my colleagues are saying.
Excellent, okay.
Happy to support that.
Okay, all right, okay, oh, good. Councillor Vikram Geriwal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just firstly like to thank Councillor Atherton and the officers behind this report. Look, the report has a lot of aspiration. There was obviously a very hard and difficult backdrop with the pandemic, but from what I can see within there's a lot that's been achieved, and most importantly, there's the fundamentals for the year ahead to be even more successful. So I'll take you to the spirit of the entire report is on page 61 for my colleagues of their agenda pack, point 1.4, where we are committed to reducing inequality and to leading by example through the way we operate as an organisation. Specifically about having a pay gap of 0. And I appreciate, we've done a great job. The median is already at 0. The mean needs to come down. I appreciate Councillor Giles' point about 3 basis points reduction or 0.03%. However, it is a reduction in the right direction, and we should really give that the respect it deserves. And again, our mean and median pay gap, well, mean pay gap in particular, the gender pay gap, is in line with our peers. So we're not an outliner by any means. But if you look at the report and you look specifically at 0.5, because the challenge is about the gender pay gap being driven by the fact that more men are in senior roles than women. That's a fact, and this report's addressed that in 5.3. But if you look at 5.5, there's a range of initiatives related to gender pay gap reduction exercises and training initiatives. Training is key to make sure that we do that, to reduce that gap, and that's being addressed in this report, Mr. Mayor. So I think it needs more credit than some of our colleagues have given it so far, and I'd ask them to read the report again and just reflect on the backdrop that this has been written in and the aspirations and actual initiatives that are within there for the year ahead to be a much better one. I will just finish, Mr. Mayor, by saying that I can speak on behalf of all colleagues, a part of the administration, that we have an absolute commitment towards a zero gender pay gap, where we can help also a diversity pay gap, and that's important that overlay is within this report and being addressed by Councillor Atherton, whether it's ethnicity or disability or anything. There is a real commitment here, and I look forward to seeing the report next year and more than a 3 basis point reduction in the mean gender pay gap. So yeah, I commend the report, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Councillor Atherton and the officers for it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I endorse what Councillor Giles said earlier. She referred to paragraph 4.6, and I think she meant 4.5, just a small point, but I would like to make a comment on paragraph 4.6, which is about salary levels for our most senior staff and compensating them for the work during the pandemic. I have concerns about this, and just like Councillor Rajawat did, I thought I would consult some London boroughs, Conservative boroughs, and one of them sums it up extremely well and says it is indefensible to pay high-earning staff a pay hike when many in the private sector in the borough will have lost jobs and income. Also, and this is a point that Councillor Giles made as well, every increase carries a long-term pension cost, and at the level at which we pay pensions, that's a huge amount of money against very high salaries. So we need to know in this paper what this total cost, including the pension liability, is. We can't have something as vague as this. It's, in my view, our most senior staff are paid extremely well already, and you are paid for the unexpected happening, and it's happening around the UK, indeed around the world. So we can't just look at this as exceptionally. Other boroughs are not making this change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Curran.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got another example of the Tories gerrymandering the facts. So later on in the council meeting, they'll be heaping praise on the officers for all the great work they've done, either to support members in the reports that have been tabled tonight or in previous work. And Gerald, to be fair to him, always does that. He's also dropped in when he was speaking this myth about golden handshakes and people being paid something which is irregular. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. If he's got evidence of any irregularities, he needs to bring them to my attention, the chief exec or the monitoring officer. To date, he has not. Everyone is paid within the guidance under the National Pay Awards. Our staff are no different. And as a true socialist, I believe people should get paid for what they're worth. I know the Tories don't that, and I'm astounded that Councillor Giles, I know she's only been a councillor for 3 years, but she must have heard on numerous occasions, if she's been listening in this chamber, that we've been paying the London living wage since 2010. Since 2010. And all of the services we brought in from the failed privatisation crusade of the Tories, those staff are now being paid the London living wage. It's no good Sam Hearn shaking his head There are facts. They are the facts. People should be paid for what they're worth and for what they do. And we'll take no lessons from the Tories in dumbing down wages and suggesting that senior officers somehow have been given golden handshakes behind the backdoor deals. Absolutely not true, and they should be ashamed of themselves for even suggesting it. So I'm appalled. I think it's an excellent report.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Curran. Councillor Curran, I've got point of order from Councillor
Giles.
Sorry, yeah, Councillor Giles. I was looking at stopping my stopwatch. What's your point of order, Councillor Giles?
I never insinuated that it was a bad thing that our employees were on the London living wage. I think it's a great thing. I'm just saying that I would like to know how many are.
Okay.
And it's the clarification point. And I don't appreciate the politicking of it, because I wasn't being derogatory in any shape, way or form about the fact that employees are on the London living wage.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Councillor Curran.
Another point of order, sir.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting how when I speak the facts, they don't like them, and they respond. I didn't insinuate anything. I merely stated a fact that you've been at numerous meetings since you've been a councillor where we've discussed the London living wage, and you should know that all council employees, as a minimum, and in our companies, get paid the living London wage. That is a fact. And I think our officers have done a fantastic job over the last 12 months. It's all right for Dominic Cummings to get a pay rise.
Point of order, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, hang on. Councillor Curran, I've got another councillor who wants to make a point of order.
Yeah. We were told about, I was told to remove my flag for politicking. He's making an overt election statement, and it's nothing to do with the discussion. Councillor Giles did not insinuate anything to do with the London waiting or any other pay. She was critiquing the report, and she was saying that there are gaps in the report.
Right, I think Councillor Giles is eloquently. Sorry, Councillor Giles eloquently explained, Councillor Moshiso. Thank you very much. No need for any mansplaining there. Councillor Curran, are you finished yet?
Well, I nearly lost my training with all that interruption, but I think I'll carry on.
Okay, go on then.
I just think it's a sad reflection on the Tory group tonight that we spent so much time on the minutes worrying about who said what when we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and we should remember that there's residents and businesses that are suffering out there and people have passed away. We should be respectful of that. And once again, we've had the Tories gerrymandering the facts and the figures. The fact is that all pay awards are agreed. They're through a very strict governance process, and I'm delighted with the report, and I'm happy to second it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lily Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I want to thank Councillor Candice Anderton for bringing this report, and I commend it. I think an awful lot of work has gone into it. And I echo what Councillor Curran has said, the leader has said, in terms of paying what we pay in terms of to our officers in line with guidance and the law. And I think I find it a bit frustrating when we have conversations like this, because I think we have to remember there is such a thing as employment law, and you pay people according to what they are entitled to. And I think that's really important, and we mustn't forget that, whether it's a London living wage or whether it's somebody at another scale. But I just wanted to pick up on some points mentioned about the diversity gaps, and I just wanted to say that within the last year, certainly in our work around COVID and recovery, there's been some really interesting discussions around how we address equality, not just in terms of in the borough, but within our workforce. And you know that, some of you here are on the Equalities Task Group, which I'm chairing, and we've had a lot of frank discussions about the improvements that we need to make. And I think there's real commitment, and there have been some changes. If you look at 5.6 of the report, you'll already see that equality network groups have been established. You've already seen that there are discussions now about how to get people, help them to progress their careers, and how to help women in terms of progressing their careers. So I think there is a lot. I mean, there is a lot of good work that's been done. I agree. Moving forward, there is more that could be done. There's always more that could be done. But I think a huge amount of work has been done since we first started having these discussions around equalities and diversity and pay gaps within the council. So I commend the report and thank you, Councillor Candice Atherton.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Councillor Garawal, Shivraj Garawal.
Yeah, point of order. I would like to move this item for a vote, please.
Okay, all right. Right, those majority group leaders. Do you support the vote to be put, Councillor Curran?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor McGregor. Do you?
Thank you, Mayor. The answer is we've decided that the report doesn't deserve to be supported, so we're going to vote against. We are unhappy with it in many material particulars.
Okay, yeah, but all right, okay. That wasn't the question. We're about moving the mover has asked that the vote be the vote be put.
Oh well, so, yeah. Put it to the vote by all means, because
there you go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right. So Councillor McGregor, how say you?
We are not in favour of this motion, so we should be voting against.
Okay, Councillor Curran, what about you and your group?
We'll be wholeheartedly supporting the report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from either group, any councillors wish to vote in a different way from their group? No. All right. Okay. Well, that this report is supported. It's carried. Right. What we got next? What we got next? Agenda item 6. The council's constitutional review, part 2. Okay, not a bit like Rocky, in it? This, or is it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I feel like Mr. Miyagi, but yeah, page 68. Councillor Rajawat, Karate Kid. That's the one.
Thank you, Sensei. I mean, Mr. Mayor. So formally move the second tranche of 3 of the constitutional review. Comments around the background, which are included in the report, were already mentioned at the last meeting, so I won't go through those. The sections of the Constitution that we are asking Council to agree this evening is the Access to Information Procedure Rules, the Executive Procedure Rules, Committee Procedure Rules, Protocol on Council Officer Relations, and the Gifts and Hospitality Protocol. As I said last time, to bring these up to date and make sure they're relevant into the future. So with that, I move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pritam Garawal, you seconding?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am. I'll second the report, and I would like to echo and agree with what Councillor Rajawat has just said. The cross-party constitutional review working group met regularly, and we had some good debates and discussions on this. And we agree this is the way forward to bring Hanslow's constitution up to date. I would like to thank all the officers and the members of the working group for their hard work, and I'll be supporting this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Atherton.
Stop shushing me.
Sorry.
Yeah, stop shushing him.
My comment was in part of the previous, so sorry, please. I might be able to speak in any of the business, maybe.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll shush you then. Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I apologise for the delay, Mr. Mayor.
That's all right.
Of course, we support this, but there are a couple of glaring errors in this report. Can I ask members to look at page 121, please? Item 2, financial implications. I'm looking at Councillor Rajwat's eyes, he's not moving. Item 2 deals with financial implications on page 121. It cites an incorrect value for a key decision. It shows £50,000, not £500,000. Worse than that, in my view, and if it will be helpful to the committee, in page 482 of the last constitutional report that came to council, it gave the definition of a key decision. I won't repeat it now, but what's happened, it's been incorrectly quoted in this paragraph. So what I'm saying is that paragraph needs redrafting. My other point is, can I ask members to look at page 122, the final paragraph, and it says, for the avoidance of doubt, any decision may only be called in once, and the members who have signed the call-in are unable to sit in on the call-in subcommittee. With respect, that's a wrong interpretation, and I'll give a sort of practical example. When we called in the LTNs, you'll appreciate, colleagues, that you need 8 people. Now, we're a group of 10. On a pro rata basis, we have a large number of that 10 who will be on scrutiny. So for them to not be allowed to get involved in the call-in process would inhibit balance, and it is against the precedent set by other councils. Now, I know the one of the officers has a view on that, but I would respectfully ask that be looked at again. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Todd. Councillor McGregor.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much indeed. I just want to bring people's attention to the issues with regards to the opening page, which has just been evaluated by our esteemed colleague, Councillor Chateauneuf and Councillor Gowell. Item 1A4. We talk about the protocol on councillor officer relations. I've always known it as member officer. And the reason for that is because if you look at the rest of the text, we talk about members. Why did we actually change the protocol to councillor officer when it should be member officer? That's a classic example of the slackness that comes through a lot of the documentation we see. I presume there's a reason for that. Perhaps that could be offered by one of those 2 members reporting when they do the winding up. The other issues here are that the report itself on the Constitution provides us with a range of issues and gives us a very clear text in many ways. But I would like very much to flag up the fact that when we get to the part 3 and the full debate, it would be very useful if the council allowed a suspension of standing orders to allow a full debate and a full discussion, so there was no time limit on the debate and no guillotining. It's very important that this Constitution is thoroughly reviewed, and we will review it completely at some stage in the future, presumably when the part 3 comes back. I will make it my business to talk to Councillor Rajawat and Councillor Gowell on the assumption they're still in charge after the AGM this year, and I will make it my business to ensure absolute cooperation to get this done and brought up to date. We are, in fact, looking at some very serious issues about the way this has been presented, and we're not certainly sure about the way the constitutional development is taking place. We have severe doubts. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Dennis.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Sorry, I did delete my D. No, Councillor Todd has said everything I was going to say. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of points, please. I'm concerned about the tone in which this is written on a couple of points. I think the precedence of the chair point, I understand the precedence of the chair, obviously that's you, But I think there needs to be some balance. You can't just silence people if you feel like it, and it's written in that tone that we are silent when you speak. And there must be occasions when we are allowed to intervene and say that we want to say something. So I think that paragraph, it's 27.1, needs to be softened in tone. And looking at the, I agree with my colleague John Todd's mentions about calls in, just on a point of that, when we were being asked about whether we were allowed to call in the LTNs because some of us were on scrutiny, I went to the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny to ask them for their view, and because we were getting some very strong legal advice from ours that it was not legally possible to be on both sides of the coin, as it were. It's different for every council. There is no guidance that says that we can't do anything in particular, and there are some councils where only members of the scrutiny committee can sign call-ins. So that's a significant difference. And we really need to be very careful about this and not rule people out on numbers alone. That's another form of gerrymandering, if you like. And then I'd just like to raise one small point on the protocol on councillor-officer relations. And for me, yes, I am going to refer to the incident last time again, but I think there is an attitude about the way in which we are addressed. I personally don't like being called councillor because I think that denudes me of any personality and originality and individuality, but nor do I want to be called by my surname, particularly behind the scenes. And we must have something about respect for people in here that captures that theme, if you like. It was offensive to me to be referred to by my surname only. So can we have something in this paper that talks about mutual respect, including in the way we refer to each other in private or in public? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Bath.
Sorry, did you say Councillor Barr or Councillor Bath? Me.
Councillor Bath.
Okay, all right.
That's
Sorry.
all right. That's all right.
I thought you, because I saw Councillor Barr's. All right.
Yeah,
yes.
he's gone off. He's given us apologies. He's got to go back to work, and I said goodbye to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple of points I wanted to pick up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been chairing the Constitution Working Party for a while, and I want to thank everybody that's been on it. It is it's a mammoth it's quite an enormous job in terms of all the stuff that we've looked at, and that's why we've looked at it in chunks, and that's why it's coming in chunks to you at the Borough Council. Now, I think we can nitpick forever and ever, but the fact of the matter is, and we all agreed on the working group, including Councillor Dennis, that we need to have a solid base to work on. We need to have a constitution that is fit for purpose and compliant and does the job for us. It's not set in stone. It can be reviewed every year, which we said we do. And if there's any grammatical errors or any things that need to be changed, they can. But I think it's important to recognise that, because we don't have something at the moment which is robust enough, and I think it's important that we do that. We went on the we all went on the members training that we've had, and we've had discussions around member officer protocol and code of conduct. And we all know how important it is that we have a constitution that we can refer to if we're not sure, and it helps us, not just us, but also helps the officers as well. And I think that's really important. So I don't sort of accept all the nitpicking. Everybody has had lots of opportunities to feed into it. It's all available. It's been there. I have to say, I haven't had a single email from anybody, not from Councillor Biddulph or Councillor McGregor, and of course, Councillor Dennis, you're on the working group, and you've agreed with what we've proposed tonight. So I'm finding that all a bit odd. But what can I say is that we need to have one that is is compliant and fit for purpose. And I think that I commend all the work. I thank everybody, all the work that they've put into it. And I think this can be reviewed next year. But if people do have things that they feel strongly about, then I'm really surprised that no one has said anything before.
What nonsense.
There you go. There you go. Thank you very much. Somebody's opinion there somewhere. Councillor Shantanu Rajawat, I think that's about it. Councillor Dennis, come on then.
Yes, thank you. I welcome Councillor Bath's comments, and I will say we've been working on this constitution and had the chance to respond, and I will just say that all councillors have had a chance to respond to this document, but also this borough council is another opportunity, as we have had opportunities before, but this is just another one. So councillors are welcome to bring things up here, even if it is later today, just because this is another opportunity to do so.
I agree, Councillor Dennis. That's what we have these meetings for, and regardless of the outcome. But let's see how this works out. Oh, they're all piling in now. I was going to go to the vote, but Councillor Giles.
I think
I've had my D up
was before me.
Councillor Giles.
Right. So actually what I was going to say is that, yes, we do see these, and we have been feeding back information to Councillor Dennis. But I think for a lot of us, it's another opportunity to scrutinise these. And as we have been told in our member training, a part of due governance and good best practice is actually that we get the opportunity to scrutinise and question when we see things aren't lacking, because obviously we're feeding into things before Councillor Dennis is feeding back into the group, and we're not actually seeing what has been agreed necessarily until this point. And I think that's actually a really important point, that we should be able to scrutinise freely at any stage until a document is then published. If we see something is lacking, then it is well within we are well within our rights as the opposition to call those out, regardless of the stage at which a document comes to us. Obviously, it's a lot easier when things are kind of in more of a formal plan than when things are still in progress, because you never know what's been accepted and what's not, especially when things are being run via committee. So I would really commend those who have done work on this. I think it's just that we would like to see something more. And I don't think that's the first time that we would do, and we would be a lacking opposition if we didn't call out when the behaviour or the actions of the council is not necessarily appropriate or is not up to scratch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Gill. Yeah, Councillor Gill. Yes, no? I had you up there, all right.
Hello, sorry, I thought I was speaking, sorry.
You are now, go on.
Sorry. Okay, now, all I wanted to say was Councillor Giles has summarised what I was going to say, but I was surprised at Councillor Bath's remarks that we are commenting on what was presented to us now. Of course, everybody is entitled to make a comment whenever it comes, when it's published, and I think it's only just respect to another councillor that they can express their opinion, and that's what we learned yesterday at the meeting. So it's just showing respect, and everybody has an opinion, and people shouldn't take it to heart when somebody expresses something else. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gill. Councillor Mashiso.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just add that the reason why we're here in the first place is that, you know, we've gone through COVID-19 and we've seen that the council constitution doesn't quite match up to the demands of the modern time. So I completely understand and support the drive to renew the constitution. And I was pleased to also hear from Councillor Lily Bath about the potential for updates. But I would suggest that perhaps those updates should be every 2 years. So at least we get to have a sitting of one and seeing where we can make adjustments then. But the one point I disagree with Councillor Bath on is on detail, because it's about detail, and it's about detail that one of our councillors felt there's an injustice. The detail was not followed, and so the more detail we can have, the better, and the more we're aware of which direction to take and how to treat each other and the protocol between officers and councillors. So detail does matter in this situation. We can't just wing it and just pass it through.
Okay. Councillor Biddulph, you're coming back. Anything new?
Thank you. Yes, just briefly, I endorse what Gabriella and Ron have said. It's extraordinary that we should be told that we can't have a debate in Borough Council. That's the purpose of this meeting, is to discuss with each other and to bring points up that might trigger other ideas in each other. That's the whole point. It's not the cabinet. We're not rubber stamping in this committee. This is the Borough Council meeting where we make important decisions and improvements. So it's extraordinary that we should be asked to do this privately by email before. It's right that it takes place in a public forum. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, which is what you've done, and you know, we've had 13 people so far. Councillor McGregor, number 14.
Mr. Mayor, I think on this particular matter, I think I've already spoken, have I not?
I don't know. I say I don't know. I know you spoke, but I thought you were going back for a second bite because your name was up. All right. So thank you.
I move to take you to a vote, Mr. Mayor.
What's that?
I move to take you to a vote.
Oh yeah, so you wanted to talk about it a bit more, but now you're moving it to the vote. Is that seconded?
We've all spoken.
Is that seconded?
Yes, I second it.
Yes.
All right, well, seconded by Councillor Gill. Those in favour of this moving this to the vote, Councillor Curran, what do you reckon?
Absolutely not, Mr. Mayor. They're not going to get their cake and eat it, and I want some of our councillors to respond to some of the most ridiculous partisan comments I've ever heard.
Okay, then.
The only decent one. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is really important. I've just gained so much respect for Councillor Dennis to stand up there and say that he was part of the working group and they've done a good job, and then for his fellow councillors just to disrespect him and poo-poo all his hard work. Shameful.
Okay. So yeah, hang on. So you vote. So your group's voting against. Councillor McGregor, you voting for this motion to be put?
Councillor Lukey, I'm not sure that we heard properly from Councillor Cohen. There was a lack of respect, and he's broken standing orders. He's also broken the Nolan principles in so many respects. It's not true. This needs to be actually investigated. And before we go to a vote, I want to lodge my protest about his attitudes, actions, and values because they're not appropriate to this meeting.
Okay. Can I just like the last meeting? Can I ask you to put that? Yeah, drop the monitoring officer a line if you do have that concern, Councillor McGregor. But
Mr. Mayor, can I raise a point of order, please?
No, you can't. No, Councillor Mashiso, you don't know how to chair these meetings.
I didn't realise I was in the mute.
You cannot. Will you stop, please? You cannot enter into a debate whilst there's a motion on the table. So I take it that motion has been lost. That the motion it be put. So I've got Councillor Bath. You want it to come back, and then I've got Councillor Bruce, and then I've got Councillor Biddulph. This is the third time I'm not going to let you just now. Let's see, and Councillor Mashiso, another third time when you just wanted the vote to be put. Councillor Bath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm coming back because I know you've allowed other people to speak more than once. I just wanted to say that, of course, people should be speaking at the Borough Council and giving their. Of course, that's not what I intended to say when I was feeding back. I think the point that I was trying to make is that if you really genuinely want to shape something, you've been given opportunities to do it, and you haven't done it. which kind of suggests to me that you're not really interested. And I think that's what I wanted to say. And you've left it because obviously you just want to make some political points, and fair enough, I understand that. But this is not about not allowing people to speak or not wanting to hear their opinion. Of course not. In fact, this was a cross-party working group, and I think it's important to remember that. And if it wasn't a cross-party working group, I could have sort of sympathised with some of your comments, but it was, and that was the whole point, is so that we get everybody's view, and that was the whole idea, is that you all input into it and you all shape it. But of course, you haven't wanted to. You just wanted to make snidey comments tonight. So fair enough.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Hang on. Councillor Giles, you've got point of order.
Sorry, I apologise for saying snidey comments.
It doesn't matter. Oh,
that was not appropriate.
God, I was going to make a flippant remark about people going to Specsavers to get their hearing tested, but
boots, go to Boots. Yeah.
So, but I would highly recommend that Councillor Bath and Councillor Curran actually paid attention to what I said, because I think what they would have said is that I was.
Point of order.
My point of order is that we have fed back to Councillor Dennis and tried to support him as much as possible during this period. And to make comments otherwise is incorrect and misleading.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Councillor Puneet Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, as another member of this working group, that it's no surprise that Councillor Dennis is the member from the minority group. He's the only fair-minded member of the opposition that seems to be able to understand, or at least have some degree of gratitude for being invited onto this working group by Councillor Bath. And so actually everything that all of the Tories have said during this discussion is absolutely ridiculous, and the only thing they should be doing is saying thank you to Councillor Bath for allowing them to have representation on this working group, because in fact a lot of time and effort has gone into it by all of us. We've all spoken, we've all had meetings with officers afterwards with the concerns that are being raised. You're given a chance, you use it, and then you criticise. It's appalling. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Okay, Councillor, thank you. Councillor Bruce, you still there? And
thank you. Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, hanging in there. It's I would go further, Lily, to what you've said and echo more what Councillor Garawal's just said. I mean, it amounts to grandstanding, is what this is. And I can see a number of members of the opposition shaking their heads, but that's what it is, making comments in public on something without actually really adding any value to what's being said. I've heard a number of times this evening, at least 3, we would do more, we would do more, we would put more detail, but no one actually really talked about what that detail would be. There were a few flippant remarks. And coming on to those flippant remarks, Councillor Biddulph, I think Councillor Sam Hearn has put in the chat here nasty, disrespectful comments. Councillor Gerald McGregor has mentioned something about Steve Curran, who said something wrong that he didn't like this evening. But none of you have seemed to pick up. I think it was Councillor Todd, who, following Councillor Bath's comments, said a load of complete nonsense. I wouldn't suggest that was a very nice way to respond to anything. So it suits you one way, but it doesn't the other. Look, let's move on with this. This is a superb report and one that's really necessary. And I commend everybody who's been working very hard on this. And I'm very disappointed in the opposition. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Look, I'm going to use my prerogative. Can I ask that this vote be ask Councillor Shantanu Rajawat to sum up and in preparation for the vote to be put.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm also disappointed with the opposition. Whilst I appreciate constructive comments, what I think they've done tonight is justify their own laziness. Although I do pay tribute to Councillor Dennis for his hard work on the working group and thank him for his contribution. Councillor Bath is absolutely right. Early involvement in these things helps shape it. What you're doing by raising issue here this evening before it's about
no, not in the summing up. Not in the summing up.
I would not be called lazy by Councillor Shantanu Rajawat. I'm afraid that's disrespectful.
What I'm calling you. So
Would not be called lazy. That's disrespectful.
All right.
That's
Okay.
very disrespectful.
Okay. All right. Noted.
Very disrespectful.
Yeah. All right. Noted.
I asked him.
I was referring to the whole opposition. It's all of you, I'm afraid, Councillor Mashisho, not just you, not that special. Yeah, Councillor Bath is absolutely right. If you want to be constructive in the shaping of such an important document that the council will use, then early engagement with it is absolutely important. It strengthens the document. To raise issue with it at the final moment before it's about to be agreed or not, as the case may be at council, amounts to nothing more than Councillor Bruce said as grandstanding, and that is a fact. That is there in front of you. If you are as diligent as you say you are, then come on, engage with the next tranche. Let's see what you've got to say, and let's put it into the mix. Be happy to take it. Councillor Bath's already made that commitment to you. I would say to one of the points that Councillor Mashisho made, whilst to a certain degree I agree with you around constitutions giving us guidance, they are giving us guidance in a direction. They can't offer a solution to every scenario. That's why we have a monitoring officer to interpret it. So whilst I take some of what you said, I do think we have to be careful about being prescriptive on every single scenario. I'm sorry, Councillor Todd found Councillor Bath's comments absolute nonsense, and he forgot to mute himself and said it out loud. But I think he was making reference, either himself or Councillor McGregor, to the council procedure rules, which will be included in the next tranche. So I do think this is a good piece of work. I think a cross-party working group has done a lot of hard work, and we do ourselves no service here this evening by nitpicking at it at the last moment. As I said just a second ago, I welcome any comments from anybody on the next tranche, but I won't be accommodating to those who wish to raise issue at the final moment when a report is about to be agreed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, right. So the
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
You know what? I wish I was back home. Won't be long. Right. So those in favour of the report, and it's two recommendations, Part A and Part B, on page 68 of the agenda. Councillor Curran, how's the majority group going to vote?
In favour of the report, Mr. Mayor, and its recommendations.
Okay, and subject to any of those errors that may have been used in drafting. Councillor McGregor, how does minority group vote?
The minority group votes against, subject to the full-scale review and full-scale debate we expect at point 3 in the process.
There you go. And anybody from the minority group or majority group dissenting from the from those statements? Okay, good. So agenda item 6, Council's constitutional review, part 2, is carried. Right, here we go. Agenda item 7, calendar of formal committee dates for 2021-2022, page 134. In the name of the leader of the council, Councillor Curran, what are you saying?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd like to move the recommendations in the report on page 134.
Okay, that's seconded by?
I'd like to second it, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lily Bath.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bath. Right. Are you formally moving it, Councillor Curran, with reserving your right to speak, or what?
Yes, Mr.
You're going to introduce it?
No, I think it speaks for itself. We've had a lot. It's a long night anyway, so it speaks for itself. They are dates in the calendar which may or may not change, as everyone knows. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, right. Anybody wish to speak on this? Wish to speak on this at all?
Mr. Mayor, my chat seems to have disappeared.
Is it? All right. Well, Go on then. I can see you. I can hear you.
Well, I will defer to Councillor Todd and Councillor Moshiso and Councillor Biddulph, please.
Oh God. All right. Go on then, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I haven't got a D in there. It's not me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So Councillor Todd doesn't want to. Councillor Biddulph.
I haven't got a D in there either.
Okay, that's your leader. That's your leader stitching you up. Councillor Moshiso, appearing to stitch you up. Sorry, Councillor Moshiso.
No, it's not stitch up. He's having technical issues, sir. But no, we're not speaking on it.
All right.
Can't see anything on his inbox, so that's why.
Okay. All right. Right.
Mr. Mayor, I now have a D in my box, I think.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll see Councillor Giles. So who do you want? Do you want you or Councillor Giles, or both of you? Councillor McGregor first, then Councillor Giles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your capacity there. The committee dates are interesting because obviously they're going to be subject to change after we come out of the lockdown. And given the fact that we already know that the government is not intending to maintain, as we stand at the moment, the lockdown principles, obviously from early May onwards, we're going to be back into the land of the living, as it were. So looking at this, I want to take a key point. Having discussed it with officers, it's quite clear that the programme is, if you like, a temporary fix. We're particularly concerned in the Conservative group on the very small number of council meetings that have been put forward. And that is council meetings with real and substantial business, because if you take out the statutory meeting on the 8th of May 2021, and you take out what should be the council tax and budget setting meeting only on the 1st of March 2022, if you take those two out, we're left with 5 meetings after this meeting. We would be happy to accept the calendar if we had a confirmation from the administration that, of course, they will do their best. That's all we ask, to actually increase the number of council meetings to ensure that the council is held to account and the democratic process works. We have a concern that the few number of council meetings may have an impact on your performance in May 22. The reason for that is, of course, if people can't see you in action, they won't know how good you are. On the other hand, if they don't see you in action, they may think you're doing nothing. So the situation, of course, is you've given yourselves huge pay rises, and okay, they've gone across the board. But it's a question, obviously, of paying more and doing less if we look at the calendar. Another issue which I'm reminded of, it's not a piece of friction, but it's a piece of fact. Now, when I say friction, we're not terribly worried about it, but the calendar is a public document, and the Labour Party seems to take ownership of the public document by telling people they can't hold meetings when they're having ward evenings and Labour Party get-togethers and drinks down the pub, that sort of thing. We know that goes on, but it shouldn't really be part of the public calendar. It's the first time I've mentioned this since 2011, but I looked at my comments then, and they're still the same then as they were now. It's not appropriate. And I know why you do it, because you want to make sure that none of the officers interfere with Labour Party business. And it's perhaps to do with quorums at meetings. I understand that as well. You need to get the organisation in sync. But quite simply, if you had a proper administration, you'd actually be able to tell officers, do not do these things on these dates because they're allocated to something else. That's what you need to do. You don't need to put it in the calendar which sees the light of day. I have to tell you that I wouldn't dream, under any circumstances, of allowing Conservative Party business to get away in the way of public business. The business of the council is council business. No more, no less. And to put this extra element of party politics in is not more than friction, but it's actually not necessary. Now, other issues in the calendar, of course, which you need to take note of, the cabinet meetings. I presume the cabinet meetings will return to their normal function over time. But I'm also concerned, in fact, about things like local meetings at council area forums. And of course, that again is another point of contact with the public, which we need to maintain at a very high level. So if you can give me some sort of guarantees and some sort of commitment that which we can believe that you will do something about this report, we might see fit to support it. Otherwise, we're not to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Giles.
So I think Councillor McGregor has said most of it, but I think it's worthwhile noting that we're only going to have 7 meetings of the full Borough Council next year. And I think that's a real concern, given that so many have been cancelled. And I would not want us to have a repeat of last month's Borough Council, where we ended up having to be here for 5 hours because the agenda was just so packed. It's not a benefit to anybody. It's not a benefit to our residents. It's not a benefit to our officers or employees. It's not a benefit to us as councillors, because sitting in front of a screen or being in a meeting for 5 hours is extremely exhausting. The science has proven that, and we therefore can't give items the proper due diligence that we need to. And so therefore, I think that's a concern, especially if we don't have the flexibility to then rearrange when we've had 6 or 7, maybe more meetings that have been cancelled over the last 3 years because of lack of business. And I don't think it's because of lack of business, it's because of mismanagement of the agenda. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shivraj Garawal.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move the vote and suspension of the standing orders, please.
So, okay. Okay. Is that seconded?
Seconded by Councillor Vikram Garawal, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so you're seconding what? The suspension of standing orders, or that the vote be put?
Suspension of standing orders. I'll leave the vote to be put to Councillor Curran.
All right. Councillor, is the vote be put seconded?
Yes, I'll do that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, right. So you supporting the vote be put, Councillor Curran, for the majority group?
Yes.
And Councillor McGregor, you supporting the vote be put or against?
Well, I try very hard to support the Labour Party, but in this case, we don't care, because you're going to do what you do, and we've got to the point where your behaviour at the last meeting is indicative of your behaviour at this meeting. So we don't care. You don't care. Okay, so I'll put that down as an abstention. So it's carried that the vote be put, and suspension of standing orders. How say you, Councillor McGregor? Do you support the suspension of standing orders, or don't you care? I support the suspending of standing orders because we want to get to the debates and we want to get to the motions. We've got things to say this evening, even if we have to stay late. All right, good that you care. Councillor McGregor, Councillor Curran.
Sorry, what's the question, Mr. Mayor?
You vote for the suspension?
Yes, sorry.
Standing orders? All right, okay. Right, so both suspension of standing orders that's carried, and that the vote be put. So the vote on the calendar for next year. You supporting that, Councillor Curran? Obviously.
Yes, we are, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McGregor, you supporting the calendar for next year?
Well, Mr. Mayor, given the closure of what we were discussing, because the question now being put, we haven't heard from the councillors, the administration, whether or not they are prepared to give anything on the calendar. And given the fact you're not even discussing it with us at this meeting, is indicative of the attitude of the administration to anybody who proposes a democratic mandate. So the answer is we are unhappy with this, and therefore we're going to vote against the adoption of the calendar.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question?
We've read the vote, Councillor Curran.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be really helpful. Every time you've asked me what our position is, voting for or against, I've given you a straight, short answer. Every time, Councillor McGregor, he's incapable of saying yes or no. He could have a fight in the telephone box with himself. Can you please restrict them to yes or no, in favour or against? It's really unfair that they're using this time to make further political statements.
Mr. Mayor, the leader of the council is again showing disrespect to a fellow councillor, and this is going beyond the bounds of reason and value. I think this is absolutely disgraceful, and it's a public meeting, and he should know better. He ought to grow up.
All right, look, thank you very much. You know what? you know, this is my last council meeting, I think, before the AGM, whenever that is, and I'm going to miss you lot. Right, so thank you. That's agenda item 7. That's carried. Now, appointments to committees and other bodies. Anything from the majority group?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any from the minority group? No. Right. Okay. I suppose there ain't if they're not replying. Agenda item 9: decisions taken under urgency arrangements. I'm not aware of any. So we move on to agenda item 10, 11 and 12, which are the council questions. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, these were published, the council questions were published, and the responses were from the initial responses were published on the council website under the Borough Council agenda. But each, as we know, each councillor who asks a question is allowed a supplementary. So, Councillor Todd, you have a supplementary to either Councillor Bruce or Councillor Dunn. Do you have one?
Well, can I say at the outset, I'm shocked that I haven't been given a copy of the responses. So I'm seeing that blind.
Are you? Okay.
Yes. I find it totally unacceptable that I pose fair questions and I've got to speculate as to what the answer is. And so I will ask the question. The theme of the question was the failure to publish documentation and thereby to inhibit accountability. So in that vein, I'd like to ask Councillor Tom Bruce, would he like to comment on the recent report of the local government ombudsman for social care upholding a complaint about failure to provide education?
Councillor Bruce, you able to respond to that, or is that not on your response?
It's a supplementary, Mr. Mayor.
That's your supplementary. Come on then, Councillor Bruce.
No, it's a fair supplementary, and it's one I will have to get back to him in writing to consider what he said. If he could put that to me in writing, send me an email, as he does often about many things, which is perfectly entitled to do, and I'm always very happy to respond, as he knows, which a lot of the things that I've answered already over the last number of weeks in his question he conveniently left out. So I'm always happy to respond, and I will do so in writing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Yes, Councillor Todd.
Yeah, he's an excellent colleague.
Is this another supplementary? Is he allowed a second?
I listened to you, Mr. Bruce. Will you kindly just?
You did. And I listened to you.
I'll give you slight leeway here, Councillor Todd. You know, I think everyone knows the rules on questions and supplementary.
I know it off by heart, Mr. Mayor.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
But it seems paradoxical that an article in Chiswick Calendar this week deals with
he is allowed another supplementary.
Department's failure. And yet the lead member can't speak.
Second one. That's okay.
Okay. All right. Look, Councillor Bruce will pick this up. I think he's probably picked up your gist.
Absolutely, I certainly will pick this up, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. And Councillor Dennis has asked Lily Bath a question, and all these, as I said, all these responses were already sent. They're either sent on an email or they're included in the agenda, the supplementary agenda. That's what I'm looking at now. The supplementary agenda, which started off with the petitions, and it goes on with the additional the responses to the questions. So yeah, Councillor Dennis, did you get to see that, and have you got a supplementary question to Councillor Barr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have seen it. I just haven't had a chance to digest it. That's not my laziness, but it was sent very, very recent. I was on the phone to Councillor Biddulph and it came through. I just haven't had a chance to digest it, so I'm not really in a position to ask a supplementary. But I do thank Councillor Bath for her answers, which do appear to be detailed, so I will look at those. I may ask a question via email outside of this group if I do think of one. But
please do ask that question.
Right.
Please do send a supplementary question in if you've not had the. And
Okay.
I'm sure I'm sure Councillor Bath will make every effort to respond.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I was going to say I'll be happy to respond to that, Councillor.
Excellent.
No problem.
Okay, and Councillor Biddulph, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Atherton?
I do, thank you, Mayor. So thank you very much for the reply. What I'd like to ask is, given the very low take-up of the whistleblowing policy compared with the comments I've received, including about people feeling intimidated about raising issues because they feel backlash, the aim must be to make reporting concerns as privately as possible. And so my question is, will the council consider these three things? First, adding helpful information from gov.uk website. There's terrible feedback. Am I the only one who's affected by it? No.
Can everybody who's not speaking, can everybody mute? Councillor McGregor, do you want to mute or shall I mute you? Yeah, Councillor McGregor, I think there's a bit of feedback from yours, perhaps.
Okay.
All right. Okay, continue, Councillor Biddulph.
Thank you. I will. So I was just saying, if you could add, I'm looking to strengthen this, obviously, and make it easier for people to make whistleblowing comments. There's some very reassuring information on the gov.uk website, and I just think it's quite short. It could be added to our policy very easily, and that would give people the reassurance they need. It's about job security, and it is in line with paragraphs 2.33 and 2.34 of the whistleblowing policy. Secondly, expanding the list of wrongdoings where whistleblowing would be in the public interest. That's paragraph 1.11, including about money, and cross-refer this to the paragraphs on fraud, corruption, financial malpractice and bribery. And thirdly, this is crucial, review and revise this 5-year-old whistleblowing policy document, making it much easier to see the safeguards and options, and emphasising the third-party whistleblowing service, public concern at work, which I presume we still have a contract with because the policy hasn't been updated for 5 years, but it changed its name in 2018 to Protect, Speak Up, Stop Harm, and it changed its website address. And the old one, which is listed in our policy, doesn't divert to its new website. So this is, I see, as a barrier to anybody who wishes
What's
to.
your question? What's your supplementary question, Councillor Biddulph?
Will the council consider these three things? And
Okay.
those three things.
Okay. Councillor Atherton, do you pick all that up? Are you able to
I got
respond?
some of it. Partly, some of it was because of the interruption with the sound, and then some of it just because they're quite long, wordy questions. But I'm very happy for you to put them in an email. But I picked up your point about concern. You're worried that staff might not come forward because they're thinking of what could there be some stigma, could there be some backlash. I mean, policy is very clear that if that was to be the case, then there's a whole other route where things can be challenged, and so we're doing everything we can to make sure. And there's also a commitment that people wouldn't be sacked based on these kind of things. So, and I think, did you say that the whistleblowing policy is not being updated? Because I understand that it was brought, the policy was brought last year. So I don't know if you meant the actual whistleblowing policy or something that's referred to in the whistleblowing policy. So yeah, so if you could just clarify about that. But I think the main thing is you want assurances. So I will have another look at our policy, and if I feel that there is a need to strengthen assurances to members of staff, then I'm definitely happy to discuss it with our directors. But I'm confident that the whistleblowing policy that we brought last year is sufficient. But I'm very happy to hear your three things, if you could put them in writing, just so I'll make sure that I haven't missed anything.
I will do that, thank you. It's very easy. I could only find the 2016 version, so perhaps one of the points is making it easier to find.
Sure, yeah, I can definitely do that. I can send it to you.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of questions. Oh, here we go. Motions. Agenda item 30. Motion proposed by Councillor Joanna Biddulph, seconded by Councillor Michael Dennis. We have amendments to these motions. all three motions on the agenda. So can I ask Councillor Biddulph to move the motion, agenda item 13, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And does that mean I can speak to it?
Sorry?
Does that mean I can speak to it?
Yeah, you got to move it. Yeah, someone's got to move it, and it's your motion. So by all means, move it. You can speak to it or reserve your right to speak.
I'd like to speak later as well. So I won't repeat it word for word because it's here on the agenda. But my point is that this deals with three incredibly important issues to do with crisis management. One is collecting feedback from everybody who's involved, including councillors, contemporaneously. There is no point in asking us 6 months later or a year later and make us try to remember what happened last year at the beginning. I can't remember that. I can't remember what happened late last year. I can't even remember the order of things in January. So much has happened in this crisis, and it's been very fast-paced, in some places more than others. So this collecting of information point is absolutely crucial. The second is making challenging decisions, including about the way the council works. I know I've heard the leader say 3 times now that he's been into Hounslow House during the pandemic and he hasn't liked it. And the message he's been giving us is people are not going to be working there again if he has his way. It isn't what the leader wants. It's what's best for the staff and best for democracy. And I have heard numerous staff saying that whilst they appreciate some aspects of working from home, coming into the office with other colleagues, having team meetings and having what Rishi Sunak has said is so important about the spontaneous conversations you have by the photocopier, the coffee machine, whatever it happens to be, are crucial. And in particular, I'm concerned about younger people who have no way to learn from their more experienced colleagues easily. It's very difficult working on the screen. It's taken us this long to get used to it to an extent, and it still doesn't allow for dialogue, the same sort of dialogue that you get in meetings or sitting next to each other or walking around a building together. So that's crucial for me, and people must be enabled to fulfill their potential if we're going to continue to be a decent employer. It's also good for mental health and self-esteem and their skills, of course. And then in terms of recovery, I'm really concerned about the lack of interest in our retail sector in particular. We've got to look obviously at places like Heathrow and our big employers, but we must also look at the smaller employers and help them survive. And second, and the most crucial point is that we must not be afraid to hear things we don't want to say. And I come back to the leader's comment again. He might not want people to work here, but they might want to, and we must enable that. So with that summary, I move my motion.
Okay. Councillor Dennis, would you like to second the motion?
I do second that motion. Yes, I do. And just to highlight that there are a lot of residents who are at risk, particularly who also some of whom are illiterate. They can't read or write in their words, and they've required significant help from the council. And I applaud the council for their help that they've given them.
Okay, thank you. We have an amendment proposed by Councillor Curran, seconded by Councillor Vikram Gerewal. And that's there on your supplementary agenda that was received this afternoon, or prior to the meeting, and it's also on the council website. I invite Councillor Curran to introduce the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do apologise. I'm now on my phone because my connection on my Surface Pro was lost for a couple of minutes during questions. But I've heard all of the debate on the motions. I'm very disappointed that Councillor Biddulph has actually misquoted everything I've said about working in Hounslow House. It's not the first time she does it relentlessly. She needs to sort it out. What I said was we would never ask staff to go back to Hounslow House if it wasn't safe. As a good employer, we need to ensure that our staff work safely, especially during COVID, and that they're comfortable with working in Hounslow House. No one will be forced to work in Hounslow House if they don't want to, and no one will be forced to work from home if they don't want to. And we will work with individual staff, with the management team to make sure we get the best outcome for the majority of staff. And everyone can be accommodated, obviously. We can't have our refuse collectors working from home, can we? So let's be a bit sensible. Completely misinformation again from Councillor Biddulph. She cannot help herself. I have never said, either publicly or anywhere else, that I do not want to go back to Hounslow House. I do not want to go back to Hounslow if it's not safe. It's as simple as that. And if I don't think it's safe, I shouldn't impose my will on anyone else. So it will be between the staff and managers in the unions to work together to make an environment that is safe and conducive to good working practices. So with my amendment, as I can't see it at the moment, Mr. Mayor, so I can't read it out, but it's there in the paperwork. I know that Councillor Biddulph is an expert on crisis management. We've moved out of the crisis management phase now. We will learn the lessons. Even the Prime Minister has not agreed a date for an inquiry yet. We will have a date where we need to look back, and I can assure you that our excellent officers in our emergency resilience team, Tom Palmer for one, and all of the senior managers are making notes every day, Councillor Biddulph, of what's going on, what's working well, what isn't, where can we make improvements. And at the end of this pandemic, we will review all of our services to ensure that they're fit for purpose and they take on the lessons we have learned from the pandemic, good and bad. So I'm really happy with my amendment. I know that Councillor Gurwal will want to second that, and I move the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Gurwal, Vikram Gurwal, you seconding this motion, this amendment? Councillor Vikram Gurwal, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, I was having trouble with the mute button. Yes, I second this amendment and reserve my right to speak.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Biddulph, do you agree with the proposal to amend the motion?
No, I don't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. Right, then we'll have to have a debate on this this motion. We have to have a debate on the amendment. So, so who have we got here? I've got people that wish to speak. Councillor Giles, Councillor Atherton, Councillor Biddulph. Do you want to hold your fire till later on, or you want to speak now?
I don't want to miss my chance and have you pull the guillotine down on me. So I'm not pulling
any guillotine down on you. But if you're worried about that, speak now then.
Thank you. I will.
You do, may I just say that you do have the right to sum up. Yeah, you have the right to sum up on the amendment before it's put on. Before the substantive is put. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, thank you. So this evening is marked by very silly comments from the majority of party trying to make us look what we aren't. I made some very sensible points which Councillor Curran has just ignored. The point is, as I've said and emphasised in my introduction, we must be asked to make contemporaneous records. And you haven't asked us. I provided you with an extremely useful chart which helps everybody focus their minds on particular issues, what was the lesson to be learned, and other points, and who's responsible for them. And your response was, I just don't agree with you. Well, that's one thing, not agreeing with me. But what are you doing to get information from councillors who have a right to give you their information, their experiences as well, across the piece, from the whole borough, looking at various impacts on residents, on businesses, not on ourselves in personal sense, but on the work that we do. There were limitations caused by some slips, as it were. This is so wrong to assume that because you're going to get something at the end, you're going to get it all. You're not. We have to have contemporaneous records kept. And so you're ignoring very important information. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. know, as I've said before, I cannot remember what happened last year at the beginning. As it happens, I've kept records of some, but not everybody will have done. And I'm struggling to remember what happened in January, never mind that long ago. So you're showing, it seems to me that you're not showing any regard for any experiences that councillors have had. I would like some detail about how you're collecting information from officers, because I think you're also negating their opinions in terms of, in particular, ways of working next. I have heard you say 3 times you don't like it in Hounslow House. That was the comment that I made. I don't think that that matters. When I was looking to be leader, I consulted others and they told me that it's not what the leader wants, it's what the group wants. But we don't see that here in Hounslow. We see top-down instructions. And this is not the time to have them in a crisis. You can run the gold meeting, you can support the gold meeting, but in terms of learning from it, it's not what you want us to learn, it's what we want you to know to learn. So I'm staggered by your disregard of that. I'm staggered by the disregard of things you've said about the retail and hospitality industry. We're all experiencing yet more unrepresentative, exclusive so-called consultations about our town centres. But meanwhile, you're making decisions with consultants that we disagree with, who come forward with proposals that don't match the effect of the crisis on their businesses and what we can do with them. So I'd just like to make those points about this. We have to look at things contemporaneously, not too late. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Giles.
Yes, and for Candice Atherton, or Councillor Atherton, who's complained that our words were too long, rather. Contemporaneous means taking record at the same time of when things actually happen. And it's as simple as that. It's, you know, as we've heard tonight, the rate of speed that has happened, or the rate of change that has had to happen over the last year was actually not actually kind of trackable in the same way. And what we want to do, and what we've been wanting to talk about, is transparency, respect, governance, all these things that I've talked about this evening, that we've all been talking about before. Is about making sure that we're putting the due diligence across to make sure that we can actually create a continuous feedback loop where we're improving our services. There's no reason to say as to the way that this pandemic has been handled, or this crisis has been handled, may not happen again. Or there's no reason as to say why that this pandemic or this situation may not happen again. And it's best practice when it comes to good management and trying to be able to not necessarily just predict how things may happen, but see how you could do things better. Because we've seen a huge amount of work and effort undertaken by our employees and by officers and residents and businesses within the borough. And there's been such a huge rate of change and so much conflicting information that in order for us to better serve our residents, we need to make sure that we're not repeating the mistakes time and time again. A lot of that goes down to poor communication, lack of transparency, and unfortunately bad governance. And so again, that is why I'm supporting Councillor Biddulph in this, and against the current amendment, because it's just not robust enough. And you're taking the easy option out by not wanting to listen to what we're saying, because it will actually help the council, our residents, our ratepayers so much better if you would be humble enough to acknowledge that actually we do have something to be able to contribute to the better running of this council and this borough. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Giles. Councillor Atherton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I am a leader and a councillor and a cabinet member that listens, and I think if you asked your colleague Joanna Biddulph, she would have been happy with my response. I was merely explaining that I might not have caught everything as I was taking notes from what she had said with her 3 questions when it's meant to be 1 supplementary, that I might have missed something, hence why I said, please, can you email me and I'll happily get back to her. So I don't know how you've got involved. You know, I am very respectful, and I'm, you know, there's moments when you do say things and I kind of want to throw something at the screen, and I don't say anything. My question was before yours. You've come in, you've brought me into this. I'm not really sure why, but anyway, in response, I was actually responding to the motion. What I feel is that I definitely will take away that I really need to communicate to all councillors some of the things that we are doing behind the scenes that might not necessarily be communicated to you. I was part of a really important meeting with our senior leadership team and cabinet. There's so much planning that is currently in place, that's already been in place for the past year, about how we support our staff, how we make moves to the new normal. There's some amazing innovation happening, and I'm very, very confident that our staff are being considered. We've done surveys throughout the pandemic. We are talking to our staff. We are listening. We have made so many arrangements. We have had people who have been coming into the office throughout the pandemic because home is either not a safe place for them to be, or it's not conducive to a good working environment. We've made these allowances. So of course we are going to consider these things moving forward. So I am listening to the motion. I support our amendment completely, but I hope that you can put some trust in me as a leader on this council, that we are really making sure that we do everything, and that all of these things, and I don't know about consultants, but we've got very senior members of staff who are highly skilled, who've been working very, very hard to understand what the future will look like, how we best make the best use of our amazing building that we have in Hounslow House, but is now slightly, going to need a slightly different purpose of use because things will be different. We already moved to smart working prior to the pandemic, which was a demand-led movement, where our staff are wanting more flexibility. They wanted to work from home. We have to listen. We have to recognise that for some of them, it's not been great. For others, it's been a brilliant move, and they're very happy with things. So, yeah, I just think I really will take on it. We need to communicate this more with you to let you know the things that are happening. But yeah, I just hope that you can put that trust in me. But yeah, please don't bring in the fact that I can't listen or understand or try and use big words to try and undermine me. Please, thanks, Gabriella.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I come back on that point? It wasn't just for you, it was for everybody else.
Okay, all right, noted.
To reinforce Councillor Biddulph's point.
All right, noted. Thank you.
You did name me personally, though, Gabriella Jones.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
I admit
that. Noted both comments. Thank you. Right, Councillor Mashiso. We've got Councillor Mashiso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for acknowledging. I don't understand why Councillor Karen and Councillor Garawal are opposing this motion. And just listening to Councillor Atherton speak on this motion, she seems to be chiming exactly with what this motion says. This is exactly as Councillor Biddulph has put it. It is thanking the Gold Group who responded first to take leadership on this matter. It is also thanking you, the councillor, you, the mayor, that we've done a decent job, not perfect job, but a decent job throughout this, and there are lessons to be learned. And if you look at her motion, for example, you look at the first one, which is about the second one, I beg your pardon, which is about restructuring. I mean, Councillor Hudson just said it. Hounslow House, I've been in there a couple of times. It is going to be a hybrid space from now on. We could even look to have some businesses operating from that place and perhaps give some money for us in terms of rent. So there are ways in which this pandemic is going to help us to work differently. And I think this motion says exactly that. And all we're asking is for you to support our motion. But again, once again, it's Councillor Karen playing politics, playing to his audience, because that's all he knows best. He doesn't know how to cooperate in a team environment. He just knows how to try to enlist his group to support him because he knows he's under pressure for his leadership. Now, the last point I was going to make is that of course, we're going to review the performances of everyone, including the leader of the Borough Council, including the executive, including us, the councillors. But this motion hasn't got anything that says Labour or Conservative. It has something that says cross-party agreement, and we've seen quite a few of those before, actually two before, where we've all agreed together and we've passed a motion through. Why change it? Why change it just for the sake of saying it is now a Labour motion? That's not right. Anyone watching this meeting will realize exactly what Steve Curran is doing, exactly what Vikram Garwa is doing, which is nicking our ideas again and brushing them and putting them into a Labour area. It is not a Labour initiative. It is a Conservative initiative. I disagree with your amendment.
Councillor Ajmal Girawal.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a point of order.
What's the point of order?
If I can. There's a notice that's come up on my screen saying 5 minutes left in your scheduled meeting time. Will that cut the meeting?
No, because if you recall, we did take a vote on suspended standing orders. So, Councillor Ajmal Girawal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems really amazing. We seem to be in two different meetings, not just two different political groups. I mean, of course, you're going to oppose this motion, Councillor Mashisha, we know, because all you're doing is just rubber stamping what you're saying to one another. You don't care what's happening in the council. You don't care about the fantastic work the Gold Crisis team has done, or the council officers have done, or the service contractors. All you want is just to have things your way. When they don't go your way, you just want to criticize everything. Councillor Bidoff, just because you provided a chart which wasn't filled in, or we didn't want it filled in the way you wanted it, doesn't mean that the work hasn't been done satisfactorily. It's been done fantastically. And it would be great as opposition if you ever took a bit of notice of the fantastic work which is being done in this pandemic. And of course, if you appreciated it, that would be so fantastic, wouldn't it? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vikram Garawal, you mentioned in the box. Do you want to speak? Oh, go on then, unmute yourself and speak, my friend.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, thank you for the contribution so far. If I can just say, Mr. Mayor, the criticism from our Conservative colleagues here about this amendment, it's quite funny, particularly Councillor Mashisha's reference to Labour stealing Conservative policies. You might want to see what his government and party have done for the past 4 or 5 years, and that is steal quite a few Labour policies that were in various manifestos, whether it's Theresa May, whether it's Boris Johnson, as of late, fixed odd betting machines capped at £2, energy price cap, banning the ivory trade, opting out of donor organ donorship, just to name a couple for Councillor Mashisha, as I know he's a keen researcher. So please do not say Labour steals Conservative policy. We must applaud our staff, Mr. Mayor. They went above and beyond, day in, day out, the Gold Crisis team throughout the pandemic. And even people that weren't even in a particular team got together, because we came into this pandemic a divided country, divided borough, but we're coming out of it as a one Hounslow borough and community. And that is because of, and our staff and the way they came together is an epitome of that. Even our political assistant, Denise, she got involved with COVID responses and got involved with different teams and wasn't our political assistant for certain hours during the pandemic. That is just an example of how everybody pulled together. So instead of criticising our amendment, I believe that the Conservative colleagues, I would just encourage them to please reconsider it again, look at what we've written. Things can always be better, absolutely. We can look at that when the time comes. But our response was absolutely first class. As a borough, for example, using our facilities, whether it's the Felton Assembly Hall, whether it's the Leisure Centre in Brentford for vaccination centres, we really pulled together as a whole borough, community, staff, and so forth. So please do not undermine all that hard work with such comments that were said tonight. I'm sure you will regret them tomorrow when you watch this again, but it doesn't look good to our residents. So I'll stop there, Mr. Mayor. I commend the amendment and naturally I'll fully support it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Merban, sorry, I missed you. Please.
Hello. No problem, Mr. Mayor. Okay, just going back a little bit. I mean, Vikram's just highlighted some of the fantastic work that we're doing as a borough, and it's not just Vikram or I or anyone else in particular. It's all of us collectively. Look, this is a council. It's not just for one. It's for all of us. And we all work very, very hard to make sure that our residents and their needs are being met. Now, when you're talking about our leader and the fact that he's saying that, he wouldn't want to go back to Hunter House and whatever. But I mean, there's been no conversations of that. Where has that come from? And why would a leader ever say, working in Hunter House wouldn't be the right thing to do? The only reason why I've resorted to working virtually is simply for your safety and everyone's safety, our resident safety as well. Now, you keep saying about, getting answers and getting, questions answered. Have you asked the questions? Look, we're being updated regularly on certain things that we need answers for. If you would probably recall, we get updates every single week on COVID. If there are any other questions that you need answers for, all you need to do is ask. I mean, we try and reach out to all of our community, councillors, portfolio holders, officers, we meet businesses, we do everything possible that we possibly can during these trying times. Talking about going back to Hunter House, why would we not? But we have to do it under the rules of whatever's required. It's for our safety. And really, it's fantastic to see that actually we can sit at home and we can have these constructive meetings and get the job done. And I don't understand how Councillor Giles is still looking and, looking a little bit puzzled at what I'm saying. All I'm saying to you is that if you need any answers, like with everyone else, you can laugh and smile as much as you like. But the point is, if you need an answer, ask the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I've got Councillor McGregor. I've got Councillor McGregor, and then I've got. What's your point? What's your point of order, Councillor Giles? Come on.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make this, Jessica. I wanted to make the point that the 30 minutes expires at 21:34.
Yeah, but we've extended standard. Have we not extended standing orders?
My understanding was you extended the end time, that standing order about the guillotine, but not the 30-minute standing order. That was my interpretation of what happened.
Is it? Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Garrawal, Shivraj Garrawal.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, everybody has expressed their views, which are very well appreciated. I would like to move the vote and move on.
Mr. Mayor, can I make my point of order first?
Yeah, well, we've got 2 minutes on these motions. Does anyone want to extend standing orders on the motions? Standing orders, so that we can.
Yes, I do. I will.
Who's?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Vikram Garrawal, happy to suspend standing orders.
Okay. Is that seconded?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Who's that? Councillor Dennis, right. Okay, let's have a bit of a cross part here. Those in favour of suspended standing orders, Councillor Curran.
Yes, we're in favour.
All right. How about you, Councillor McGregor? McGregor.
We'll suspend them. There's no reason why we shouldn't. After all, the Labour Party are making fools of themselves this evening.
Here we go.
There we go. All right. So I'll take that as assent then. Thank you. Right. Let's carry on. Your point of order, Councillor Giles.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm laughing is because actually I'm just astounded by the lies that we're hearing this evening. Okay. I'm laughing because there's a lot of assumptions being made by.
That's not a point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. Look. Noted. So, Councillor.
Some of those were facts, not fiction.
All right. Sorry, Councillor Merbag, you've had your chance. Right. Councillor Shivraj Garrawal.
Yes, sir.
Right. So
yes, I move the motion for it to be voted, please.
Okay. So so can I have those in favour of the Can I have those in favour of the amendment? Please indicate. Councillor Curran.
We're voting in favour of the amendment, the Labour Group, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor McGregor, you voting for or against the amendment?
Against the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I thought you would. Okay, thank you. Right now, do we want to, the amendment is carried. Do we want to debate on the substantive, or do we want to go to the vote on this?
We'd like to move to the vote, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, right.
Like a debate.
You'd like a debate, right? Well, let's you have I think the general understanding is we go to the vote. You have the right to sum up, Councillor Biddle.
Okay, thank you. Right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Well, I find it extraordinary that so many people from Labour have not read the motion, because we've been criticised for not praising staff when the first paragraph starts with the council wishes to thank and show its appreciation of, amongst others, and this is particularly for Councillor Mirban, who clearly hasn't read a word, the Gold Crisis Team, council officers and service contractors. So we are here making that important point. Feedback again. And for Councillor Ajma Garawal as well to miss that point, and Councillor Vikram Garawal as well. I mean, it's extraordinary how little.
I have read it, you know.
Sorry, can we stop?
No, you haven't.
Look, please, one at a time. Let's just get on with this, please.
You clearly haven't read it, because that paragraph is absolutely clear. And the other points are that you are, in removing our 3 points, you are obliterating collecting feedback. It's not, Councillor Mirban, about asking questions. That's a little innocent point. It's about recording important experiences that need to be learned about. So you're wrong on that. The second thing you're obliterating is the ability to, the willingness to make challenging decisions about the future. Your minds are made up about what should happen in Hounslow House and how people should work. That's absolutely clear, including from the email response that I got earlier today from your leader. And you're also obliterating the points that we must look much more closely at all workers, not just those you favour, including the smaller economies from retail and hospitality, for example. So as Councillor Giles said, it's not, your motion is simply not robust enough. You've weakened it. You've obliterated people and people's experiences, including councillors, but not only councillors. There are many lessons to be learned from this crisis. I'll say it again, the Gold team has been extraordinary, senior staff have been extraordinary, but mistakes have been made, and we shouldn't be so arrogant that we're not willing to listen to our own feelings about what we've done. Surveys about how you feel, surveys about mental health, very important, but they do not record mistakes made or things that could be done better. This pandemic might come back again. We might have something like this every year. We cannot go through the same mistakes again, and I don't believe that my voice has been heard, and I believe that also applies to other councillors. You might have a route into your own, but you're not asking us, and you should include us. So I think I will end with that, but I'm astonished by the lack of reading and the accusations that have been made to us about this motion, when it's quite clear in the agenda that we start off with praise, and your motion, which deletes 3 important points, simply weakens it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Biddulph. Right, so that's it with this motion. We'll move to a vote on the substantive motion as amended. Councillor Curran, are you in favour or against the substantive motion?
Against the substantive motion.
Okay, and Councillor McGregor.
We're against the substantive motion as amended, Mr. Mayor, as is Councillor Cowan. Okay,
fine. Okay, did I miss it? Thank you. So the motion. So the motion as amended is carried. Did somebody say, someone said something inappropriate? I didn't catch that. I was too busy trying to.
Mr. Mayor, you've got it wrong. Councillor Cowan voted against.
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right. Okay, so whoever's taking the minutes will have noted that. I think everyone voted for the amendment. He would have voted for the amendment. All right then. Someone called the liar. Is that true? Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It's Jessica here. I wonder if we could just rehear the way that everyone voted there, please, just for the minute, please.
All right. Okay. Right. Councillor Curran. Does your group, does the majority group vote for the amended motion?
Not the amended motion. We're voting on the substantive motion now, aren't we?
Well, okay.
We've already voted on the amended motion, and we won that. We then went to debate on the.
Good point. Good point. Sorry. I was reading about someone calling someone a liar on the chat, but
sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Okay. So. For the record, the majority group is voting for the motion as amended.
Yes.
And the minority group is voting for or against the motion as amended. Councillor McGregor.
And no one's going to vote now.
Right. So I've no idea what. So is that an abstention then?
No, it's a default process. We're not going to vote. We're not going to abstain. We're not going to say yes. We're not going to say no. We regard the whole thing as a farrago.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Right, agenda item 14, proposed by Councillor Dennis, seconded by Councillor McGregor. Would you like to start that one off, one of you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think on thinking about this a second time, I would like to withdraw this motion, if that's acceptable to you.
Thank you.
So if you wish to withdraw it, that's your prerogative. Okay. Thank you. So we move on to agenda item 15. Councillor McGregor, seconded by Councillor Sam Hearn.
Well, Mr. Mayor, this is becoming more like Handforth on Thames, so we're going to withdraw our motion.
I don't think it is, but then again, you might have watched it in a different way than others. It's what people contribute, how people contribute to it, Councillor McGregor, and we know it's difficult to run a meeting remotely, and I think we've been given I've been given a fair crack of the whip to everybody, and people who wish to speak are allowed to speak. Yes, Councillor Mashiso will shake his head, but then again, he's only been a councillor for 3 years and he's still not got it. So let's just bear that in mind for the next meeting.
Is that being respectful to your fellow councillor?
Yeah, all right. I think there's a lot. Respect has been bandied around a lot tonight. That word. I think
you're being very disrespectful.
Next item is I've not been informed by any other matters that the mayor considers urgent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And the date of the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 18th of May. To commence at 7 o'clock, and that will be the annual general meeting of the council. So that will be my last appearance as mayor, and you know what, I'm really looking forward to that. All right, thank you everybody for coming, and see you later. And yeah, respect.
Mayor, well done. Well done, Mr.
Well done, Mayor.
You're going to be missed, Tony.
We'll miss you.
Bye.
Yeah. I'm going to miss you, Tony. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.